September 11th, 2001. A day that would strike fear in the hearts of Americans forever. A day the world's darkest evils were witnessed firsthand by citizens of the United States. A day that will never be forgotten. On that tragic day, a terrorist organization known as Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 commercial airliners. The terrorists flew 2 planes into the World Trade Center in New York City and another into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The 4th plane was supposedly intended to strike either the United States Capitol building or the White House, but was redirected by passengers and flight crew who heroically overpowered the hijackers. 2,996 people were killed and around 6,000 injured that day. Grieving citizens sought revenge on the cowards who committed these heinous crimes. Their vengeance was executed in the form of a war on terror. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, at 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 was flown into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. The aircraft departed from Logan Airport in Boston and was headed for Los Angeles, California. Approximately 15 minutes into the flight, the plane was hijacked by 5 terrorists working for Al-Qaeda. The Boeing 767 was carrying 92 passengers, all of whom died on impact as the plane crashed into the North Tower. Hundreds of people inside the tower were killed instantly when the aircraft struck the impact zone. Hundreds more were trapped, as the possibility of escape was destroyed above the 92nd floor. The North Tower was ablaze, the fire fueled by 10,000 gallons of jet fuel. "18 minutes after the initial impact, a second Boeing 767 crashed into the South Tower around the areas of the 70th floor. United Airlines Flight 175, also departing from Logan Airport heading for Los Angeles, had successfully been hijacked by 5 more terrorists, also affiliated with Al-Qaeda. The explosion rendered burning debris to fall to the city below. Trapped victims inside the towers were overwhelmed by the intense heat that resulted from the burning jet fuel.
Good morning, have a good day. Hi, what's your number again, please? 869 I'm on the 83rd floor. What? I'm on the 83rd floor. 86 what? 8695. 8695? She at the World Trade Center. Someone having difficulty breathing on the 83rd floor. Hey, ma'am, how you doing? Are they going to be able to get somebody up here? Well, of course, ma'am. We're coming up to you. Well, there's no one here yet, and the floor is completely engulfed. We're on the floor, and we can't breathe. Okay. And it's very, very, very hot. Are the lights still on? The lights are on, but it's very hot. Ma'am. Very hot. We're all the way on the other side of Liberty, and it's very, very hot. When your lights, you could turn the lights.
The conditions inside the World Trade Center were unbearable for many. An estimated 200 people jumped from the burning buildings in a final attempt to choose how they would die. The jumpers' bodies would strike the ground at around 150 miles per hour. The fall lasted about 10 seconds. A New York firefighter was killed when a falling body struck him.
We saw the plane on the other side of the building, and there was smoke everywhere, and people are jumping out the windows. Over there, they're jumping out the windows, I guess, because they're trying to save themselves. I don't know.
At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center had collapsed. It had burned for nearly an hour before tumbling to the ground. Rather than toppling over, the building imploded, seeming to be driven into the ground. Within seconds, one of the most prominent features of the New York skyline had vanished into a cloud of ash. debris showered to the streets below, damaging buildings surrounding the World Trade Center. The North Tower collapsed soon after at 10:28 a.m. People panicked as they ran from the immense clouds of ash that swept over the city as the tower fell. Debris from the tower soon covered the city when the tsunami of ash and smoke clouds began to clear. Fires erupted as a result of the burning debris from the South Tower landing on nearby structures. The 7 World Trade Center building caught fire and would collapse later that afternoon. In the blink of an eye, the Twin Towers were gone. All that was left of New York's tallest buildings was ash and rubble. The area was shrouded by an eerie haze of smoke. 2,752 people died as a result of the attacks in New York City alone. People soon emerged from the smoke, covered in ash and dust, traumatized by the events they had just endured, but still alive. With smoke in their eyes, ash in their lungs, and sorrow in their hearts, they appeared from the wreckage. They were the survivors. The same day, at 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 struck the Pentagon. The flight had departed from Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia and was scheduled to land in Los Angeles, but things took a turn for the worst. A half hour into the flight, the hijackers had breached the cockpit. The plane ended up striking the western side of the Pentagon, causing part of the building to collapse. All 64 people aboard the flight were killed instantly. 125 people were killed inside the Pentagon. It took days to fully put out the fire caused by the attack. The fourth plane, Flight 93, was crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after people on board retook control of the plane, overpowering the hijackers. Departing from Newark, New Jersey, and headed for San Francisco, California, the plane was hijacked and was allegedly planned to be flown into either the United States Capitol building or the White House. All 45 people aboard Flight 93 had perished. Within hours of the tragedy, the government had identified the attackers, and using information obtained from a hijacker's luggage that did not make it onto Flight 11, the FBI traced the attacks back to Al-Qaeda. The government soon discovered that Osama bin Laden was behind the attacks. Soon after the attacks, the Bush administration declared a war on terror. This war sought to bring justice to bin Laden and his organization, and to prevent future attacks from occurring. In the aftermath of the attacks, the Department of Homeland Security was formed. This cabinet department is responsible for protecting the country from terrorist attacks and responding to disasters. This department came into existence when Congress passed the Homeland Security Act of 2002. Another act passed in response to the September 11th attacks was the USA Patriot Act, which aimed to detect terrorist activity. The U.S. Patriot Act brewed much controversy, as it includes the National Security Agency's warrantless surveillance program. This program, referred to as the Terrorist Surveillance Program by the Bush administration, is authorized by the President's order to monitor phone calls, emails, internet activity, and text messages without a warrant. People believe that this program directly violates the Fourth Amendment, which protects citizens from unreasonable search and seizure, and reasonable search and seizure without a court-ordered warrant. Another controversial issue in this program is that it was ordered by the President himself.
We will make no distinction
and it is questionable
between
if the
the terrorists
executive
who
branch
committed
has
these
the power
acts
to authorize such surveillance.
and those who harbor them.
Many believe this program does not correspond with the nation's system of checks and balances and the separation of powers between different branches of the government. There has also been controversy concerning the effectiveness of this program. Citizens felt that the program was pointless and ineffective in the detection of terrorist activity, and that their privacy was being violated without any actual goal being achieved. The tragedies that occurred on September 11th, and the controversial and possibly unconstitutional efforts to prevent such a disaster from ever happening again, will never be forgotten by the American people. September 11th, 2001 was a day that shook the world at its roots. A day that caused us to realize how vulnerable we really are. A day that united the American people to seek justice in the name of their country and in the names of the thousands of victims that perished at the hands of the extremist terrorists. A day that we hope will never be repeated, but we know will never be forgotten.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve.